Hello, everyone. It's Joe from the Strange Voyage Files. It is November 13th, 2025. And this is definitely going to fall into the Does It Suck category. This is Van Halen OU812. Now, this is not falling into the Does It Suck because it's a Sammy record. All cards on the table. I usually prefer the Sammy music albums over the Dave. Go crazy in the comments. And at one point in time, when this album came out, I was a kid, this was probably my favorite Van Halen album for a while. That has drastically changed over the years. I still have enjoyed it, but boy, this definitely falls into a Does It Suck? And I don't know how hard this is going to be of a decision. So this album, even when I liked it, it was extremely experimental sounding. It sounded like it was all over the place. It sounded like they had a great formula with 5150. I think 5150 is a great album. At one time, that was my favorite Van Halen album. Right now, if you're going to ask what my favorite Van Halen album, which it has been in the past, and probably is right now, is Fair Warning. Van Halen 2 coming at a close second, 5150 probably coming in not too far after that. But this one, I always really liked, and I listened to this one over and over with the exception of a few songs. And what I think may be the most popular song on the album, I cannot stand. I couldn't stand it then, and I can't stand it now. There are also a few other songs on this album that I absolutely cannot stand, and I didn't like them at that time either. But I liked the other songs so much that I just kind of ignored the few I didn't. I don't know. I don't think it's aged well. I think that this is a great example of an album that had two very powerful singles. Again, one I think is one of the best Van Halen songs ever written, and one I think is one of the worst Van Halen songs ever written. But they did very well. It sold 4 million copies. I just looked all this up on Wikipedia. Sold 4 million copies, but I think it falls into the theater of pain. Even Girls, where you just have a couple of good songs that really push the album to a point where people, they're just like, yeah, this is great. This album, I'll buy this album. So extremely successful, but very forgettable. 5150 and For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, those are the two Sammy albums that people are always going to remember. This one, in balance, it's kind of like, okay, which one has fallen off the radar more? I think it's this one. I think that if you played songs from Balance, people would know Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do, Can't Stop Loving You, Not Enough, Feelin', Amsterdam. People would at least recognize almost all those songs. With the exception of the two, no, there were three singles. Black and Blue was one too, but I don't think that did well. With the exception of When It's Love and Finish What You Started, I don't think people would even know what album these songs were off of. Some people may think it's just a Sam, because of the voice, it's a Sammy solo project, and that's another thing. Some of these songs sound like they weren't finished. And actually, what I think happened, because Don Landy was running the show with this, I think what actually ended up happening was that it was overproduced. How did this go? This was like a combination of Van Halen and Don Landy. Don Landy had engineered most of the Van Halen, if not all of the Van Halen albums with Ted Templeman. But yeah, it's like they really wanted to be, I don't know, man. A cross between Rush and Genesis. Love Genesis. I hate Rush. I don't know. It was just very, very experimental, very weird. Very heavy keyboards, which people, Van Halen fans, that was one of their biggest gripes about Sammy, the Sammy era when 5150 came out, was what's with all the keyboards. I mean, that goes back to 1984. But this one is, very heavily keyboard album. And it does work in some places. It doesn't in the other. Now, obviously, they knew this was not a step in the direction they wanted to go, because when you get For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, it's very guitar heavy. And they went back in the mode of writing songs that were hits. That let's cut the experimentation and let's write a rock album. So, all right, let's go through this. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. Talk a little about my view on things, and no, because I'll forget. I say it and I always forget. I was always, like I said, I've always liked the Sammy Hagar era more musically, and my reason being is, even with an album like Fair Warning and Van Halen 2, there are always, not just one, there's always a couple filler songs. Yes, the first album too, with Dave. I felt as we got into the Sammy era, they had more solid albums, and even some of the lesser tracks weren't really filler. Now that has changed, because when you hear about this, my view on this album, that's obviously not the case. But I still do think that at least those two albums, at least 5150 and For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, are more solid through than most of the Dave albums, because there's not as much filler material. And Sammy, I was a big fan of Sammy. I was a big fan of Sammy in the fact of when Eddie attacked Mike and Sammy came to his defense. And I always liked Sammy. I never got anything against Sammy. I was really happy to say I'm a Sammy Hagar guy. That being said, since Eddie has died, I have lost all respect for Sammy Hagar. He has everything from saying, let's do a tour, a Van Halen tour, let's have everybody there. It's kind of like what they were Eddie was planning to have. He was going to call it the kitchen sink tour, where everybody was going to be involved. So Sammy wanted to do that, and he said, Dave would come up every night, thinking Dave would never do it. Well, Dave called his bluff. And Sammy backed off and said, no, you can only do like one or two shows or a song here and there and blah, blah, blah. And, backpedaled real fast on that one. But went ahead and did this tour, and then, that was a disaster. I don't know what happened with Jason Bonham, but that was kind of a disaster. And just has, any time the guy is interviewed, he could be interviewed about his shoelaces, and he brings up Eddie. And then this absolutely insanely ridiculous, and this is where I totally done with Sammy Hagar. I had a dream about Eddie Van Halen. We wrote a shitty, horrible, this song that he claims that he wrote in his dream with Eddie is absolute garbage. I listened to it twice. I couldn't stomach the song. I wrote a song with Eddie Van Halen. Get out of here. And you can understand why when Alex wrote his book, which I still have not read yet, he doesn't talk about Sammy, the Sammy era, and he will not talk to Sammy. I've lost every single ounce of respect I ever had for that guy. I mean, my God, talk about milking the machine. And again, it's not out of a undying loyalty to Eddie. I mean, Eddie was a great guitar player. I consider him the second best guitar player on the planet, next to Randy Rhoads. But Eddie pissed me off when he attacked Mike. Eddie, when they threw Mike out of the band like that, the way he treated Mike was generated a lot of animosity for me, because Mike was always the greatest guy. I don't care, if you're Team Eddie, Team Dave, Team Sammy, Team this, Team that. Mike was always a good guy, And to rail on this guy for decades, really, steal his, take the royalties back, which is fine if you're going to take them from your brother, too, who doesn't write anything. Maybe Alex gets the paper clips for the music that the sheets of music you write on, but Alex writes nothing. Eddie wrote all the music. Eddie flat out had said multiple times, why would I ever need to do a solo album? I write everything. I mean, that was asked to him more than once. Are you ever going to do a solo album? Why? I'd do a solo album, and it'd be 3 other guys, and I would do the same songs. And then Sammy did contribute as well when Sammy joined the band. But otherwise, during the Dave era, it was all Eddie that wrote the music. Dave wrote the lyrics. Mike and Alex didn't do anything with the writing. I mean, helped out here and there and whatnot. But I lost a lot of respect for Eddie with that. And, Eddie was a very, very tortured soul, I think is the best way to say it. He's an alcoholic, drug addict that just, when there's a behind the music, and I talked about this in past videos, where my heart goes out to Wolfgang Van Halen, because when he talks about this, there's things he doesn't want to discuss and things that says he'll never forget, and you can see this man is being torn apart. And Valerie too. And Valerie, God bless her. I talked about the other side of the coin, the people I do have respect for, Wolfgang and Valerie, because Valerie could have easily fooled everybody and been like, you know what, I'm America's sweetheart. I'm great. Don't Eddie Van Halen's the drunken drug addict, and she didn't. She said, hey, you know what, while Eddie was doing lines of cocaine, you know what I was doing? Right next to him doing lines of cocaine. And because she could handle it. She could at least fake it in public. Nobody would ever think in the 80s. Nobody ever thought Valerie Bertinelli was on drugs. Eddie couldn't handle it. She could. She could have fooled everyone, but she didn't. She put her heart on in public, and God bless that woman. Again, I'm not going to sit here because he's passed away and say, Eddie was. I always, had all the respect in the world. No, I lost a lot of respect for Eddie for how he dealt with Mike. But I have no respect left for Sammy. And I'll be taking a step further. I've never been a big Alex fan, even back, from day one. Alex is always, any story you really kind of heard about Alex, he was kind of a presumptuous jerk. Didn't want to deal with the fans. Didn't want to, and I'm not going to go on the road of riding his brother's coattails. He was a great drummer. Not going to say the guy had no talent. He had a great amount of talent, but every story. Eddie, if you got Eddie when he was sober, and he's not running to the, to the bathroom or running, if you're in Home Depot, let's say, whatever, Walmart, and Eddie Van Halen's in there looking at, playing cards or whatnot, you go, Eddie, he wasn't the type of guy to be like, yeah. You never heard those stories. You heard some of those stories when he was drunk. But if it was just Eddie and he, again, there's not some emergency or something, he's just kind of doodling around town, he'd stop, he'd talk. There are a lot of stories. He would have long conversations with people. He just liked people. He just liked, oh, you like Van Halen? That's great. What's your favorite song? And how's this? And oh, you're doing this and you're playing this. And if you were a guitar player, which I'm not, I have no musical ability whatsoever. But if you were a guitar player, he would, talk to you probably for quite some time. So it really is sad because Wolfie talks about this in that Wolfgang Behind the Music. Really a Jekyll and Hyde thing. But all right, going back to this album, they really are at their peak of popularity. They were monsters. I mean, there was never a downfall from the first album until after For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. It was just constant. So they're just as strong as ever at this point. But again, they put out this quite, my view, experimental album, and I do not think it stood up at all. All right, let's run through here. We'll talk about this. Remember, ratings are 1 to 5, and I do not do decimals. When it becomes a decimal, and when I average it up, we round up or down. First one is Mine All Mine. I used to love this song. I used to think this was one of the greatest Van Halen songs. Still good. Kind of anticlimactic when it comes to the chorus, but it's a fast pace. It is a good song. Not great. I had to go back and forth with this a couple times. It's a 3. It's a 3. Still good, but where I used to listen to this over and over, got bored listening to it. Oh, and why I'm doing this album is, I don't know, a few weeks ago out of nowhere, I said, man, I should listen to OU812, and I had not listened to it in probably a few years. I'm like, am I just in a bad mood, or does this album suck? So I listened to it again a few days later. I'm like, oh, wow, this album really is not what I remember. And then I listened to it again before this, and now this, well, I think you got you got a preview of whether this album's going to suck or not. So Mine All Mine is a 3. Now, the next one is one of the best Van Halen songs of all time, When It's Love. It's a 5. It is great. The band sounds fabulous. It is the perfect mix. If they're going to have keyboards of guitar and keyboards, I've loved this song since the first time I heard it. This is a song I will still listen to over and over and over. Absolutely great. Biggest single off the album. It should have been the biggest single off the album. It is great. Next one is All Fired Up, Naturally Wired. It's a 1. It sucks. It's, a lot of, I don't know if I would say it's almost an instrumental, because there's another one that's kind of almost an instrumental, but no, that's not, I shouldn't say it's on. But it goes nowhere. And that's another thing with some of these songs. They almost sound like they're demos, like they weren't fleshed out. And AFU, Naturally Wired, All Fired Up, Naturally Wired is a 1. It's no. Next one is Cabo Wabo. Yes, the Cabo Wabo song. And years ago, that would have been a 5. I loved that song. Has not aged well. It's a 3. And this was started a big rift in the band because Sammy was pushing this whole Cabo thing. The club down there, the tequila. And I will say I had the tequila, and I am not a tequila guy. I don't drink it all anymore. I mean, you're going back a lot of years. But I never drank tequila when I drank, and it was pretty smooth. But I used to love the song Cabo Wabo. It's not horrendous. It's a 3. Source of Infection. This is another one that's kind of all over the place. It's a 3. This is kind of another one that could almost be a bordering on sort of an instrumental. I don't know. It just sounds like it's a lot of screwing around at the beginning and whatnot, and I don't know. Source of Infection, so yeah, that one's a 3 as well. All right, the next one. I screwed up. I gotta pause. Did I screw up? No, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, no, I didn't. So Source of Infection is a 3. Feels So Good. I still like this song a lot. It's the ballad. The chorus kind of screws it up for me. It's a 4. I said Source of Infection is a 3, I believe. God, old, and I get up at 4 in the morning. Source of Infection is a 3. Feel So Good is a 4. This was one of my favorite songs. I love the verse. I love the bridge. It's the chorus is very anticlimactic to me for Feel So Good, but it is a 4. The next one sucks. I've hated this song from day one. Finish What You Started with its cowboy twang, and it is garbage. A 1. I hate it. God, I wish I didn't set the precedent that everything has to have a 1, just for at least playing the instrument, because this would be a 0. What a waste of a single, a waste of everything. Garbage, absolute garbage. I've hated that song. I cannot stand that. I don't know what it is. That attempt to be somewhat country. Yeah, attempt to be somewhat sucky. You just Finish What You Started is absolute trash. They shouldn't have even started that song. You know when they should have finished it? 2 seconds after they come up with the idea. Another one, pretty bad, Black and Blue. I liked it, again, years ago I liked it a lot more. It's a 2. It's just because it doesn't totally suck, I gave it a 2. But nothing I ever visit. Last 2 songs I've hated from day one. And I did. Now the last one is usually not on the album or cassette, but it was on the CD. I always had the CD, so I'm doing this. Sucker in a 3-piece, complete waste of time. It's a 1. Absolutely terrible. Sammy with all his money, his middle finger to the people, the executives. Yeah. What are you doing with your money? They're just another rich guy that you're just another rich guy that doesn't wear a suit. So Sucker and the Three Pieces always sucked. It's a 1. And then this cover, this Apolitical Blues, is garbage too. That's a 1. I've hated those 2 songs. Total wastes. You have Black and Blue kind of breaking up the last 4 of suckiness. But Finish, yeah. Oh, God. Those 3 songs are terrible. Okay. Round it up, add it up, and average it's a 2.4. Kind of surprised it even got that far, but that big. But When It's Love definitely saved this. Feels So Good saved it. I round, so it's a 2. This album sucks. This album absolutely sucks. I mean, really, 2, maybe 3 songs saved this album for me. It has not aged well. It is not an album that I ever listen to. I will listen to When It's Love for sure. Feel So Good, maybe. That is about it. This album absolutely sucks. I will listen to Balance. And again, that one hasn't aged all that great either. But I think this, if you were to poll people, again, who are not diehard Van Halen fans, casual Van Halen fans, some of them may not even remember this album exists. And yes, it sold 4 million copies, but so did a lot of other stupid albums. So, all right, let me know what you think. Right, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Madison's going to have that Instagram and X going another day or 2. You just wait. All right. Yep, do all that stuff, and I will see you soon.